With the exception of Ravens and Commanders tonight, week 2 of the preseason is in the books, and we're sharing our top takeaways today on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast.
You are Locked On NFL Scouting with the Draft Dudes, your daily podcast for NFL and college football scouting. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's better than this? It's guys being dudes here on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast. We're the Draft Dudes. I'm Joe Marino from Locked On Bills. He's Kyle Crabbs from Locked On Dolphins. And we are your NFL experts here with you daily to talk team building across the league on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast with the Draft Dudes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'd like to thank you for making Locked On NFL Scouting your first listen every day, and a big welcome and shout out to our everydayers. You know who you are. Those of you who never miss a single episode, we appreciate y'all being here very, very much. This episode is brought to you by BetterHelp. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. Visit betterhelp.com/lockedon today to get 10% off your first month.
Joe, happy National Joe and Kyle grind tape for probably the entire afternoon day to you.
I started Sunday night. I did special teams Sunday night. Monday morning did the offense, and we're getting into the defense here later on.
How's special teams tape grinding going with the new policies and procedures across the league?
Well, it's preseason, so that means everyone returns every kick, right? No matter what. So we don't know, right, what the impact of this new fair catch rule is. I've not seen it happen one time yet. Everybody's taking everything.
And I've noticed we're deliberately kicking short too, right? Because you want to evaluate how the guys cover the kick too.
Yeah.
So it's probably the most entertaining special teams tape you're ever going to catch.
Yeah.
Is preseason, because the coach tells the kickoff kicker, put it at the 3 and let him run it out, and we're going to go cover it.
Yeah.
And the special teams coach on the other side says, I don't care where you catch it, run it out. We got to see how everybody blocks and how you do.
And everyone that's doing this is trying like hell for a roster spot, right? This is the nitty gritty.
You're probably not a lock for a 53 80% of the time. Well, so a lot of intensity on those reps too.
Kyle, I'm glad you brought up this special team stuff, because I think one of the biggest storylines coming out of the preseason is the Dolphins kickoff situation. I mean, is it going to be Jason Sanders? Is it going to be Jake Bailey? They're rotating. What's going on here?
You know, it has not been asked of head coach Mike McDaniel about the situation. I would imagine a big leg kicker like Jason Sanders, if you don't like your kickoff unit and you don't play that game, and they didn't play that game at all last year because they got sapped a bunch of depth, and they had guys playing defense that they didn't want, so their special teams guy weren't where he wanted to be. They generally said, we're going to fair catch every punt, and we're going to kick as many kickoffs out of the back of the end zone as we possibly can. Yeah. They're going to have that same strategy this year. I think it'll be Jason Sanders.
We'll see. I think that's just something I'm really paying a lot of attention to.
I bet. All right. Well, maybe it's an overreaction to the Dolphins who's kicking the kickoff, but I know that's something that you had heavy on your heart this morning, was the opportunity to talk about the magnitude of the preseason and the reactions to the preseason. So,
dude, the takes are everywhere right now. Just wild. And we're 2 weeks into this thing. Thank God there's only 1 week left. But I don't feel like people are consuming, or I wouldn't say that's fair. I think there's a lot of people that are just missing the mark with how they're reacting to preseason. I saw Panthers fans this weekend say Frank Reich's nothing more than another Matt Rule. And you know what? And I said that to you in the pre-show, and you said, based on what? Exactly. Right. Two
preseason games that you didn't bring a specific game plan into.
And it's about exposures and opportunities and evaluation. And you're going to sit here and feel like a team can or cannot reach its goals based on what you observe in the preseason. So I'm seeing that. Obviously, Bills fans are in complete shambles over a very sloppy performance against the Steelers. 12 first half penalties.
12 and it's like first half. I knew it was bad, but
how impressive is that? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
12 for in the first half. Now only 13 for the game. You gotta love the improvement there in the second half.
Good bounce back to adversity there in the second
half. But it's like what are we doing? What are we doing? You're really going to allow yourself to have this much emotional energy worked up over a preseason game. We've been doing preseason for a long time, folks. We know how it translates to the regular season, and it doesn't. It doesn't. I watched Nathan Peterman be the greatest quarterback in the history of the preseason one year, and then he turns around in his first game and turns the ball over like 5 times in the first half. All right? It's not the end-all be-all. Take it in proper stride. You're evaluating. You're seeing how guys execute. It doesn't tell you anything about the trajectory of your football team during the regular season.
Can I give you a quote from Mike McDaniel?
Of course, but you have to say it like Mike McDaniel.
I have not perfected the McDaniel.
Oh, but you're working on it? Are you working on it?
No comment.
That's a firm yes from Kyle.
He was asked about the third preseason game coming up as far as evaluating the snap counts for the quarterbacks, because Mike White started the first one, played the whole first half. Skylar Thompson effectively played the entire game after the 2 drives with the Dolphins starters.
3 tutties, Skylar Thompson.
3 tutties. Preseason gym class hero Skylar Thompson dropping big time performance on the Texans. He killed in the preseason last year too.
Case in point, boys and girls. Case in point.
Mike said this, and I'll read the whole quote. And it was asked about evaluating the offense and evaluating the quarterbacks in the preseason. You have to balance opportunities, and there's so many compounding variables with opportunities. You get playing time, but who are the eligibles you're playing with? Who is on the offensive line? It's game performance. There's a lot of times I'm calling plays for them and less concerned about the defense, specifically in the preseason, and instead say, hey, we've repped this play. We've talked about it at length. I want to see what he does, types of things. You try and balance stuff like that across the board with every position. This is a example of a coach telling you, I don't care what the defense is. I'm not calling the play for the defense.
Which would never happen in regular season.
To see if my player properly diagnoses the situation based on the it's when you go into Madden and you go to practice mode and you pick a play and then you say the computer defensive play is random. And then you just rep it. And you figure out what it works against and you figure out what it doesn't work against and you figure out why. That's the whole preseason for every position. That's the point.
Hey, you came in with great insight there. That's a great quote from Coach McDaniel. And man, oh man, do I hope the reaction. Well, I mean, I'm interested to see what teams. Well, are teams going to play guys in week 3? You know what I mean? Like, what's going to happen here? Are they really? Yeah, I saw that. Yeah. I wonder if the Bills, based on how sloppy they are going to put their starters back out there.
I would have to imagine you'd want a better springboard than that.
I would. Yeah, I would. I don't
know.
And
I'm glad the Jets have decided to too, because could you imagine brand new quarterback, brand new system?
I can, and I was hopeful to see that. I was hopeful to see that on Monday Night Football. Go ahead and put him out there. No reps. It was like Trubisky. You remember the year? It was like his rookie season. Matt Nagy said, "You know what? The last thing this guy needs is some live game reps before we put him out there for his rookie season." I don't know. I'm not into that, dude. I think that the best way to get ready to play football is to play football. So
and practice and live game is one thing, but it's not the same thing.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that is an invaluable part of the experience, and the coach's job right now. You could say whatever you want about players who get banged up or players who get injured. I know DeMarvion Overshown had a really unfortunate ACL tear as a 3rd-round rookie for Dallas as an example of that. But the job of the coaches and the football team right now is in all phases to get their team ready to play competitive football. And you can't do that in my mind. And you might disagree with me and say, what the heck do you know? You never got to the NFL. And I'd say, okay, good point. But I'm still entitled to my opinion. You can't get ready to do that without emulating and simulating the game day process and emulating and simulating going out on the field and actually executing and having the clock and getting acclimated to when you're out against another opponent. Locating where's the play clock, right? Where do I have to look on the field to find my coaches who are going to give us signals or whatever else? There's all kinds of little layers and nuances into execution at the level that is expected of you that you got to go out and you got to do it.
Yeah, totally agree. All right, we're going to talk CJ Stroud, Bryce Young, all of our takeaways from week 2 here in just a moment. But first, this show is brought to you by BetterHelp. Getting to know yourself can be a lifelong process, especially because we're always growing and changing. Therapy is all about deepening your self-awareness and understanding, because sometimes we don't know what we want or why we react the way that we do until we talk things through. BetterHelp connects you with a licensed therapist who can take you on that journey of self-discovery from wherever you are. So if you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. All you do is fill out a brief questionnaire, then you get matched with a licensed therapist. You can even switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. So discover your potential with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/lockedon today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon.
So we want to talk rookie quarterbacks.
Yeah. Bryce Young,
Young,
Anthony Richardson,
CJ Stroud. Richardson did not play.
I totally meant to say, yes, that was a little slip there. He didn't play.
You gave me a little panic back in my brain saying, oh, I don't have any Richardson.
Yeah. Aiden O'Connell, Dorian Thompson-Randall, these guys are looking really, really good. But start with Bryce Young, the Friday night game against the Giants. I came away with a lot of the concerns that I had about Bryce Young as a prospect, right? He definitely shows some nice twitch and movement skills within the pocket, and I'm actually going to steal a quote here from Chris Trapasso. He put this in one of his TikTok videos. Chris said, Bryce Young is the most physically limited quarterback to ever go number one overall, right? He just is. And he's a size outlier, and I think he's got okay arm strength, and he's very twitchy as an athlete, but he's not like Lamar Jackson or Michael Vick or something like that. He's got good pocket movement, but not like that. And I thought you saw some of that show up in this Panthers most recent preseason game. They gave him an extended look, but there was just times where I thought the ball came out heavy from his hand. There were times where he faced a little bit of pressure and he couldn't get enough velocity on the ball. He's playing on his tippy toes, which is something I talked a lot about from watching his tape at Alabama. And when you're on your tippy toes, that means your cleats aren't on the ground, and that really takes away from your base and your ability to generate a lot of torque and velocity on the football. And so I mean, obviously there's a lot that needs to play out with Bryce Young, but I think I can look at this performance and say, you know what, a lot of the things that I was concerned about with him showed up and limited some of the opportunities that he had against the Giants on Friday night.
Okay. So this is where it's important for us to reiterate the context of the preseason, right? Because if there's any concerned Panthers fans that just listen to what Joe said, and I completely agree with everything that you said. And when we came out of the first series that Bryce gave in week 1, we were we were complimentary about the anticipation.
Got the ball out. Yeah. All the stuff.
Snap processing. Yeah. It can all be true. Right. And I think that's important because we came out and we were fairly complimentary of Bryce and his execution from a pre-snap processing standpoint. But this one kind of encapsulates the things that I think Bryce has to, as he matures as an NFL quarterback, figure out how to minimize, circumvent, work with, and figure out how what he does well can mitigate some of the things that he has to work against that other NFL quarterbacks don't have to work against, right? Because you're absolutely right with everything you said. And I think you saw there were a couple of off-script stuff, a couple of off-script opportunities. I thought the incomplete pass over the middle was probably the best off-script opportunity that he had, where he slid away from pressure and he dropped the arm angle down and he kind of just laced it out there. And he said after the game on that miscommunication, when his receiver looked back, Bryce wasn't where he expected him to be. So it took him an extra second to locate the ball. And that's why there was a misconnection there on that opportunity. Okay. So I thought that was the good outside of structure version of Bryce. I thought the bad outside structure version of Bryce was the one where we really tried to work, and it was a offsides, right?
Yes. Yeah. That wind up not counting.
So you do all that work. Right? It's offsides. It's free play. You do all that work. And he did so much good with that in college that I just think those types of plays are going to be a little bit more infrequent in the NFL.
Yeah.
And then you do all that work and you still throw the ball out of bounds. And he had a couple shots down the field that I was a little disappointed with the placement on, that he hit foul balls on effectively. So it's going to be a work in progress.
No question.
So I hope Panthers fans don't listen to that and get upset with that. We're being objective about the things that we see with each viewing, and it's obviously super small sample size. He had 6 pass attempts.
Right. And he was pressured a good amount, right? 4 of those 6 pass attempts and 8 dropbacks, right? So
what
he
do we
had
do with Ickey?
Frank Reich told us today that he's not concerned.
Okay.
But yeah, I think through 2 games, it hasn't looked great, right? I mean, we certainly developed so well down the stretch last year after those first few games. I thought some of it was communication issues and maybe not understanding the protection scheme and where he was supposed to be. Because physically,
the one free run was absolutely a miscommunication.
Yeah. Right. So I don't know, man. I can't imagine him all of a sudden just undoing all the good of last year. But right now, there's some growing pains as he adjusts to the new scheme. And
is it worth talking about again that you just referenced it, new scheme, right? And from a player development standpoint, is it worth considering Ickey might have to claw back some of the gains that he made by the end of last season because he's having to relearn some stuff and reapply some stuff. This is always the hardship that teams face at every position with players that they invest in when you make schematic changes and language changes and ideological changes.
There's a ton of that, right? I mean, in the amount of turnover at coordinators' positions throughout the league is very, very significant. And so this is a spot that players find themselves in all the time. And it's hard to play fast when it's not second nature to you, right? You're still learning. It's a second game, preseason. So I think we have to apply that to a lot of players here as they, find their way in new situations, even if it's the same team.
This is why we talk about player development not always necessarily being linear.
Right. It's unfortunately a lot of times the variables don't have anything to do with that player. It just becomes harder on them because of a shift of maybe a player around them that they have or don't have, or new coaching, new terminology, all that stuff. You got to play fast in the NFL if you're going to be successful.
You want to talk about CJ Stroud?
Yeah. I mean, you saw him against Miami. I know you've studied the tape. So I guess I'll let you roll with this one first.
So ironically, I am still working on the TV copy there. I haven't done the defensive side of the ball yet, but I know with Stroud, much more comfortable than what he was against New England.
Low bar to clear, but yes, right?
Yeah, very low bar to clear. I think what you saw from CJ was just kind of the natural passing ability was I think the thing that appealed to you the best. I would have loved to have seen their opening possession when they were going against like Miami's top guys, not start in the red zone. Because you can't by the time the Dolphins got the Texans got the ball the second time, like Raekwon Davis was the defensive line was Deshaun Hand, Emmanuel Ogbah, Brandon Peely, and Malik Reed. And like that was by the time you got through that first red zone possession on the interception, those were the pass rushers. And what I think that allowed CJ to do is there was a little bit less of the super urgent clock and things happening fast. Now, I think in the red zone on that opening possession, when you had the turnover on downs, you had a miscommunication on there, you had a bad ball in there. I think things happened really quick, and I don't think that was necessarily a good thing for CJ to start in a congested area of the field against the Dolphins starters.
Good exposure for him, though.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. But it's like you saw how fast it was for him to start. And then, oh, by the way, now we're going to condense the field, and your first plays against the actual starters are going to be in a condensed area of the field. And I think that's why you had the nice run that set you down on the 1 yard line, but then you had the procedural issue and it backed you up. And then you had 2 misfires in the red zone. So I think once it became the second rush group for the Dolphins defensive line, that's when kind of the gifted nature as a passer and having just a little bit of time and not having that super urgent clock really stood out to me for CJ Stroud. And you saw the third down conversion on the outbreaking route too. I think it was Robert Woods against Noah Benogany. Was a really, really nice ball. And he had a couple really nice balls. And his receivers on a couple of them didn't help him either. I thought he had another couple ball. Noah Brown dropped one. That was a really good ball on a crossing route. So the passing ability for CJ stood out. I don't know that the concerns about the speed of everything is anything that I would feel overwhelmingly better with, because I think there is a little bit of context in how he settled into the game, but you like how he settled into the game with who they had on the field.
Yeah, I think the word for me is just like you mentioned there to start, just more comfortable. And at this point, that's a great thing to say that, hey, I watched you in your first game and I watched you in your second game, and you were a lot more comfortable in your second game. And I think that's a good path for CJ to be on as he takes over this football team. Everything's new there. He's new. And looking for more growth, right? Week over week. That's encouraging.
Yep.
All right, we got some more takeaways here coming up after a quick word from FanDuel. Football season is about to kick off, and FanDuel is giving you the chance to win all season long, because right now, when you bet on a Super Bowl winner, you can get bonus bets every time they win in the regular season. So if you think that the New York Jets are going to win the Super Bowl, pick them to win on FanDuel, and when they win a regular season game, you get bonus bets, and you can use your bonus bets on spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. It's so much fun over there at FanDuel. Free bets, man. Are you kidding me? Love that. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and start earning bonus bets with America's #1 sportsbook. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon.
The Jets?
You were twisted up on that for the whole ad read, man.
You could have picked any other team.
I picked the Dolphins last time. This time I did the Jets.
Yeah.
Locked on Bills, I did that read. I picked the Bills for that.
The Jets.
Tomorrow, next time I do FanDuel, could be we'll find out. Keep everyone on their toes.
How about an NFC team?
Nah, NFC's not real, right? Kidding.
Fake conference.
Kidding.
Okay.
So opening it up to the rest of what we saw here, some standouts from the games that we watched. I got several players written down, but maybe we just continue with the Texans and talk about Will Anderson and some of the impact that he was able to make in the football game.
Yes. So obviously the centerpiece play was the forced fumble off the edge. And how many times did you see Will Anderson do that exact thing in Alabama?
It's his thing,
right?
It's his thing.
So what I did is I went and I found the play for Miami, what the play was supposed to be. And it was not what you got. It's supposed to be 16 stutter is the protection, the pass pro for a play action fake. Either the tight end lined up on the wrong side of the ball, or he was supposed to motion and then come back post snap. So you had a procedural issue in the beginning of the play. Then you had a high snap that prevented the ball ride to come out on time. You had a puller. The left guard was pulling and is supposed to kick out the man on line of scrimmage. Well, there's penetration from the defensive lineman on the other side of the ball, next inside of Will Anderson. So the puller can't get there because there's another body in the way. And then Will Anderson is an explosive athletic freak.
Yep.
So it's a really, really toxic mix of things for the Dolphins offense, where the elite physical component of Will Anderson was exactly what took over on that play. And it was an awesome play. Now, he also had a number of really good rushes in that game too. Just explosiveness, speed to power, converting, collapsing the edge of the pocket. It was all good for Will from what I saw.
Yeah, I saw some of that last week against the Patriots as well. Kyle, a defensive player that stood out to me in the biggest imaginable way is Nick Herbig from the Pittsburgh Steelers. This guy is a friggin' monster, dude. I was a pretty big fan of him coming out. He fell to the 4th round, if I'm not mistaken. Yes. And he just looks like he's going to be that next guy for Pittsburgh, right? They developed Alex Highsmith, and I feel like now they got this dude. And, I mean, burst, crazy flexibility, finishing speed, pass rush arsenal. I mean, this guy was everywhere. He was an absolute menace for the Bills' offensive line, and I feel like Pittsburgh just got themselves a great next guy in this mold that they continue to find here on the edge.
So, as somebody who didn't catch that game, I know Buffalo fell into a hole early, right? It was 14-0 early.
Mm-hmm.
What was the game script for that to happen?
They had 2 explosive touchdowns. One was a Jaylen Warren 62-yard touchdown scamper.
I know that was on the talking point.
Yeah, that was a hell of a run. Was Siamalu, great climb to the second level to seal off Tyrell Dotson. The center, I think it was Cole on that play, reach blocked Puna forward and sprung him. So great run by Jaylen Warren, good blocking up front. And then Kenny Pickett threw a seed to Pat Freiermuth down the middle of the field, Matt Milano in coverage. And Milano, has his back to the football, and Kenny Pickett just throws it to where Freiermuth has a little bit of leverage to the left while Milano's got his back turned. It's an absolute seed. So they had a couple of explosive plays to get them up 14-0. And, the Bills kept on committing penalties to take away some of their good explosive offensive plays, and was a pretty yucky first half. But I mean, when you look at Pittsburgh's got to feel great about themselves right now with the way that Kenny Pickett played, Pat Freiermuth, Jaylen Warren. Their O-line was really good. The Bills could not affect any of the quarterbacks that Pittsburgh put out there. And then defensively, what you got from Nick Herbig, who was just an absolute animal out there. And then Joey Porter Jr. gets an interception. It was like, man, if you are a Steelers fan, you are loving life right now. And I totally
best
get
day
it.
ever, right?
Oh man, are you kidding me? You saw all the things you wanted to see. You got a chance to see against Buffalo at your home stadium. So I'm sure Pittsburgh's feeling pretty good right now. They should.
What are the names did you have? I know, or did you want to expand on Jaylen Warren? I know that.
No, what is your take on him? 1,000 yards from scrimmage, man. And I think I bet against you on that, dude. I don't know. Every time I watch the Steelers, I feel like he's their best running back, but
I saw a stat on Twitter, and I don't know how to attribute it.
No, I saw it too. I saw it too.
What's that?
The EPA stat comparing.
No, that's not it.
Go ahead.
How long was the Jaylen Warren touchdown run?
62 yards.
Do you know how long Najee Harris's career long run is through his first 2 seasons?
I have no idea.
Any guesses?
I'll say
a number out there.
Okay, I'm guessing it's pretty low. I'll say 28 yards.
22.
Okay. I remember that being a thing with Marshawn Lynch when the Bills drafted him. It was like, oh, he just doesn't have any 20-yard runs. I'm not putting them in the same spear, but I don't know. Listen, I hear you. Jaylen Warren, whenever he touches the football, he's really good.
Pittsburgh has not had a good offensive line the last 2 years. So I'm not killing Najee, but I do think Jaylen Warren brings a different element too. And it's interesting, like you hear about, especially the Alabama guys, right? Like replicating the environment. You think about Tua Tagovailoa and all the speed merchants and what that wide receiver room was like. Well, like Najee's kind of inclusive in that too. And if you're going to maximize him, it's almost a player you have to tailor a lot of your supporting cast and offensive line to his strengths as a player. And that hasn't really been the case. Now, I think it's the best it's ever been, but that gets back into that debate about the investment in a running back and what you would advocate for and what you would not advocate. Like it's just really interesting because Najee is a first-round running back who at Alabama really didn't break out at first, had a late breakout there because he was bottlenecked behind a couple guys, and it was a very specific offense that they played in when they all shined together in like 2019.
There's too many Jaylen Warrens and Isaiah Pacheco's out there for me to be interested in Najee Harris in the first round. I'm sorry. That's the world I live in.
I didn't want to go there, but
yeah, I will. I also watched this Lions Jaguars game, and Jack Campbell, stud. Okay. It wasn't hard. If you watch his tape at Iowa and you're aware of his physical traits, you're not surprised. But people thought I was crazy.
He plays linebacker.
People thought I was crazy for thinking the Bills should take him at 27. What do you go, 18?
18 is going to be one of the top candidates for defensive player of the year if he stays healthy, or defensive rookie of the year if he stays healthy.
And our guy, James Houston, once again, showing up, making plays. So far, because this guy's pass rush productivity is off the charts. So far in 2 preseason games, he's rushed the passer 29 times, has 8 pressures and a sack. I mean, my guy, I love him.
Never overreacted the preseason unless it's confirming your priors, right?
Well, I mean, James Houston had 47 sacks in 20 pass rush snaps last year.
Understand.
So, we're just parlaying it, man. This is who he is. He's a guy.
Did you see any San Francisco?
0.
So you didn't see any Trey Lance?
No, I didn't watch any of that.
And it's just,
I saw some of the social media reaction. It's not very good.
So he led a touchdown drive late. But I know JT O'Sullivan has put out a couple clips already. And you're just concerned about the field, the way he's seeing the field. They had a sit route over top of the ball as an example, that there's a linebacker in the backside B who's flat-footed and reading, and the sit route comes at 5 yards and sits down directly over top of the center, and he throws it. And the linebacker never left, being stacked in the backside B at 4 yards. So it's just you're right there. And I know Sam Darnold sounded like he had some success. I only caught about half of his reps. I didn't see his full performance, but it's just that San Francisco team is really, really fascinating because of that storyline that's going to continue to unfold. And Kyle Shanahan has kind of put his flag in the ground for Brock Purdy. But if there's interruptions, and look, historically for San Francisco with
they're going to play several quarterbacks.
They're going to play several quarterbacks. I don't think this is just going to go away. He's had a 16-game starter quarterback, or like full season starter, now that we play 17 games, which is still dumb to me. I'm sorry.
Matt Ryan,
like
the only one ever.
Well, it was Matt Ryan in Atlanta, but in San Francisco, it's happened like once, and it was the year they went to the Super Bowl with Jimmy. It's like the only time he's been healthy the entire season.
Wild. Jordan Love, real quick. How about that guy? Looking good. Arrow up.
I think the Packers are going to be okay.
Okay, might win them that division.
Well, and that's I think they'll the closer we get, the more we see. I think that's a team with a winning record this year.
All right.
So probably based off the playoff field, I mean that might be a playoff team.
Yeah, winning record might get you into the NFC. Could be a race to 9 wins.
As we have the ticker down here scrolling across the bottom with our predictions from July that had the Giants in at 8 and 9. So, yeah, it probably would. I think 9's the race to 9. It probably gets you in. That is going to do it for us on this episode of Locked On NFL Scouting. I'm Kyle Crabbs. He is Joe Marino. We are on YouTube or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. We appreciate you guys for checking out the show. Make it a great rest of your Monday, and we'll be back again tomorrow to talk more about this preseason action as we get ready for the start of the 2023 season.